In this video, we'll be going through what I would consider to be the meat and potatoes of a lot of algebra courses. Pages 7 through 9, a lot of solving equations. What's the goal of all equation solving? To isolate the variable using inverse operations. So what is an inverse operation? It's the opposite operation from what you were looking at. So on number 2, as we see, negative 2k is equal to 10. So 2 is held together to k by multiplication. So what's the inverse operation? Division. What are we going to divide by? By the very number I see. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is positive 1k equals positive 10 divided by negative 2 is a negative 5. So k is equal to negative 5. If we check that, negative 2 times negative 5 is equal to 10. And negative 2 times negative 5 is indeed 10. 10 equals 10. Check. So this is a good answer. Don't forget, if I get going too quick, just press pause, catch up, rewind, you're in control. Our next problem, number 4, 3 plus n equals 3. Again, the goal is to isolate n. So we are going to look at the value of 3. And now the inverse operation is the value in front of 3. Okay, that's a positive 3. So what's the opposite of adding? Subtracting. So I'm going to subtract. And I get n is equal to 0. Again, 3 plus 0 is equal to 3. 3 plus 0 is 3. So that checks out. We have a final answer of 0. But just for the record, say it was 3 minus n equals 3. I would still focus on the fact that that's a positive 3. I would still subtract 3 from both sides, and I would get negative n is equal to 0. And I'd say, well, then negative 1n is equal to 0. Divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1, n is still equal to 0. The point of that is to focus on the inverse operation is out there. Number 6, m divided by 2 is equal to negative 9. The operation holding 2 to 9, or 2 to m is division. So the opposite of that is multiplication. And I'm going to multiply by the value that I'm trying to get rid of. So 2 divided by 2 is 1m. And negative 9 times 2 is negative 18. So there we have negative 18 for our final answer. And again, negative 18 divided by 2 is equal to negative 9. Negative 18 divided by 2 is negative 9 equals negative 9. Check. That's a good answer. Move on to number 8. Number 8, negative 9 equals x divided by 10. Again, it's very similar to number 6, just the variables on the right side, no big deal. My operation that's holding 10 to x is division. Opposite of that is 10. When I multiply by 10 on both sides, 10 on the right side cancels. 10 times negative 9 on the left side gives me negative 90 equals x. For my check, negative 90 divided by 10 should be equal to negative 9, which negative 90 divided by 10 is negative 9. And so that's good. So that is our final answer. So number 8 is all set. This next problem, the only thing we have going on here now is just a little bit of an upgrade. We have parentheses, which means we're going to distribute that negative 8. So take it one step at a time. First, I'm going to draw my arcs to remind me to distribute. Then I'm just going to rewrite the left side. Nothing's changing there. Negative 8 times 8x is a negative 64x. And a negative 8 times a positive 3 is a negative 24. Now, we're going to make some steps to isolate the variable. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of the 24, right? So I add, because that's the opposite of subtraction, 24 to both sides. And I'm going to get 128 is equal to negative 64x. Again, moving ever closer to isolating the variable. This is attached by multiplication. The inverse is division. I divide by what I see. 128 divided by negative 64 is negative 2 equals the value of x, because negative 64 divided by negative 64 is 1x. And that is my final answer. Go back and check. And as you'll see, I substituted negative 2 in for the value of x. Then I followed my order of operations. 8 times negative 2 is negative 16. Negative 16 plus 3 is negative 13. The negative 8 comes down for the right because that's multiplication. And that follows, right, the parentheses stuff first. Or I'm sorry, trails the parentheses operations. So I get negative 8 times negative 13. I get 104 is equal to 104. So my answer is good to go. Okay, on the next problem, again, I see some distribution, so I need to distribute the 2. So 2 times 5x is going to give me 2x, and 2 times a negative 6, negative 12, equals negative 26 plus 8x. Nothing to do on the right side. Now we have variables on both sides. So what I'm going to do is analyze where the variables are, who's bigger and positive. 10x is positive, 8x is positive. So if I subtract the 8x from 10, that will yield a positive 2x. I would prefer to keep the coefficient of x, right? The coefficient is the number in front of x. Prefer to keep that coefficient positive. So I'm going to get negative 12 just drops down. So 2x minus 12 equals negative 26. Don't forget that negative. And 8x minus 8x cancels. Now what? Isolate the variable x. So I'm going to get rid of the 12 first. Move things that are not attached. The negative 12 plus 12 cancels out. So I get 2x equals. And then negative 26 plus 12 is going to be a negative 14. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. X is equal to negative 7. And now we'll check our answer. I had to squeeze it in here, but we have 2 times 5 times negative 7 minus 6 equals negative 26 plus 8 times negative 7. So draw a little line between the problem. Over on the left side, 5 times 7 is negative 35, and negative 35 minus 6 is negative 41. And 2 of those is negative 82. On the right side, 8 times negative 7, multiplication first, is negative 56. And negative 26 minus 56 is negative 82. Negative 82 is equal to negative 82, so therefore negative 7 is correct. Now for solving each equation for the indicated variable. This starts to get a little challenging because nothing's really going to go away. We're just rewriting. For number 26, it says solve for x. Right, so we got u equals kx. We want to solve for x. That means we want x to get by itself. K is attached to x by multiplication, so we're going to divide by k on both sides. So u divided by k equals x. Done. Again, for number 30, it says to solve for x. So x minus c equals d minus r. If you want to solve for x, I guess c has to go. So c is attached to x by subtraction. So I'm going to add c to both sides. So that cancels out. I'm going to get x is equal to d minus r plus c. That plus c could go anywhere, right? You could have written x equals c plus d minus r, right? As long as you have the positive c in there. So I think this would be the most popular answer. Done. Our last one, again, we're going to solve for x. So x is right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of what's not attached to that. So I'm going to add y to both sides. And I'm going to get either u plus y or y plus u. They're both positive. So I'm just going to write y plus u equals x times k. X is attached to k by multiplication. So I'm going to divide by k. Who did I divide by k on the right side? The whole right side. So I'm going to divide the whole left side by k. So I'm going to get x is equal to y plus u over k, or u plus y over k, over k equals x. And again, I think this would probably be the most popular version. And we're moving on. For solving each proportion, we're going to use a little bit of cross multiplication. But just before we get going here, 3 over 8 equals a over 4. To get 8 to turn into 4, I divide by 2. To get 3 to turn into a, if I divide by 2, I think a is 1.5. But let's investigate this using cross multiplication. So if I have 3 over 8 equals a over 4, the first thing I do is I draw an x. That helps me understand who I'm multiplying. I multiply on the diagonal. Now as I multiply on that diagonal, I'm going to get 3 times 4 equals a times 8. That's going to give me 12 equals a times 8. Isolate the variable by using inverse operations. That's multiplication. So I'm going to divide by 8 on both sides. And I get 12 over 8. If I reduce top and bottom by 4, I'm going to get 3 halves is equal to a, or a is equal to 1.5, as I stated at the beginning. Decimal or fraction answer, totally acceptable. Okay, so doubling back to that order of operations, I see I have x minus 1 on the bottom. That's in implied parentheses. It'd be in your best interest to put those parentheses there. And now we're going to cross multiply. And who are we multiplying? 5 times 2 is equal to 4 times x minus 1, all in parentheses. The most common mistake is students only multiply the 4 times the x and not the 1. Oops. Don't forget to distribute. 5 times 2 is 10 equals 4x minus 4. Let's isolate that variable, move everybody away who's not attached to x. So 4 is being subtracted. The opposite is addition. So I'm going to add 4. 14 is equal to 4x. Divide by 4x, as that's the opposite of multiplication. And I'm going to get 14 fourths, right? 14 fourths is equal to x, or 7 halves is equal to x, or x is equal to 3.5. So either one of these answers is satisfactory. And that wraps up this video. Hopefully this is helpful. Take care.